Nation in Conversation, taking you on a journey through the South African countryside. Proudly sponsored by Monsanto, Nedbank and Senves, in association with AFGRI, Hinterland and NWK.
Hello and welcome to Nation in Conversation. We continue our journey through the South African countryside, focusing on produce unique to each area. We also look at the central role this industry plays in sustaining the local economy, especially through agriculture and tourism. In today's program, we focus on the picturesque town of Wellington, particularly the wine and whisky industries. This is what you can look forward to in today's show. In Homegrown, we visit the famous Dimmersfontein wine estate, as well as Bosman family vineyards. During our In Context segment, we visit another successful business in the area, the James Sedgwick Distillery. Chris Burgess from Landbouweekblad also joins us in studio. In our dialogue segment, Theo explores the current issues impacting on these industries with his guests from Vinpro. Wellington, only 45 minutes from Cape Town International Airport, lies the so-called new heart of the Cape wine route, and with good reason. Not only can visitors enjoy world-class wine estates such as Dimmersfontein, Valvanpas and Dwilhof, but the region is becoming ever more popular for its whisky, table grapes and fruit. The Wellington region is also celebrated for its breathtaking flowers and scenery, surrounded by mountains, rivers and valleys, such as Bainskloof Pass, the Berg River and the Haverkwas Mountains. Add to that the popular Cape Dutch houses, music festivals, unique eateries and a classic museum like Oma Granny's house, and the Wellington region has a perfect recipe to entertain young and old. The Wellington region clearly offers a wide choice of attractions, but the core of the local economy remains the remarkable wine industry. We spoke to the mayor of the Drakensberg municipality, Conrad Poole, about the role of the wine industry and specifically the role of producers, as well as community development projects and the importance of tourism for the region.
Wellington do have these wonderful tourism attractions like your mountain bike routes, your wine routes, and then also your heritage attached to that, and then also your art and crafts and culture. And also Wellington is very popular for the wedding venues, and then also for these kind of a mixed use within the agriculture sector. The contribution of the wine industry is really essential to us as a municipality. It's crucial because they are a sector that provides jobs throughout the year. And that's why it's so vital that we have to unlock a way. How can we even improve in that kind of a sector? Because not only to maintain the jobs we have, but to increase and expand. Because it's the only way how we can fight poverty.
Did you know the Wellington region is responsible for approximately 85% of all vines in South Africa? Dimmersfontein is one of the most renowned brands in the Wellington area, and David Sonnenberg knows just how important this industry is to the community in terms of job creation and development, as well as tourism. We spent some time on their estate during the Gauteng Opera performance and explored their passion for art and music.
The Wellington area has got fantastic soils, and that came about because of our proximity to these granite-rich mountains. There's a lot of decomposed granite in this area, makes for wonderful fruit-driven wines, and historically it was the home of the Stokkiesboerdery, right, which is where the rootstock of all table grapes and all wine grapes get propagated. We focus on pinotage. We're pretty famous for the so-called coffee chocolate pinotage, but we also have if you like, a new oak barrel driven top of the range, which we call Carpe Diem, and I'm happy to say those have all done pretty well in the marketplace. Dimersfontein is hosting the Gauteng Opera, and this is a wonderful organization that helps both professional singers and also a lot of student singers to present their works.
Gauteng Opera's tagline is opera for everyone. And the reason why it's opera for everyone is that because we really would like to make sure that the whole of South Africa and the world experiences opera, that it's not just pocketed into a certain group of people. And I think that as a nation, we really need to start embracing things like opera or any other theatre, really, to become part of the really remote part of South Africa, like Wellington, where they don't normally get theatre like this.
And we love the idea of both entertaining our customers and giving them a fun experience at Dimersfontein, as well as contributing to organisations that have a developmental focus. On Dimersfontein we have a school, we have an empowerment company called Tokozani, and we like to do these things as part of being, I hope, enlightened employers, along with many others in the wine industry.
Sustainability is of paramount importance to the success of the wine industry. The story of Basson family vineyards is testimony to this. Petrus is the 8th generation on the farm. Their rich history is rooted in its people, the community, and of course, the art of winemaking.
Basson family vineyards is situated in Wellington. We grow a large variety of different grape varieties, and then we also have wonderful old vineyards that's been growing here in this region, Chenin Blanc, for more than 35 years. In 2008, we've embarked on what is still today the largest land reform transformation transaction in the wine industry, where 260 employees got ownership in land, vineyard land, and the business. Since then we've grown fivefold. There's a feeling of true ownership, and we believe if you care about the people that do the work, they care about the work they do, and that improves the quality of our product.
I grew up on this farm, Lilyfontein, and I lived with my grandparents. And I started working as a general worker on the farm. And yeah, there are two families on the farm, the Bosmans and the Apollos families. I'm the 5th generation of the Apollos family. Since we started the Black Empowerment Project in 2008, we've seen there's a lot of a magnificent improvement in the life of our people itself. We started with almost like 20 people, and nowadays we have 500 people. I believe that this industry, farming, is one of the most job creations that we have in the Western Cape. I believe successful stories can get out of this relationship between the workers and the farmer.
One of the ways in which Basson family vineyards draws people to the area is through annual music festivals. Petrus tells us a bit more about the active role the wine industry plays in stimulating tourism in Wellington.
The wine industry can play a fundamental role in the development of tourism, as food and wine tourism is very popular and growing fast. I think by further develop new experiences and just do what we do a little bit better, will not only draw more tourists to South Africa, but also create a lot of jobs.
Did you know the R62 from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth is considered to be the longest wine route in the world, stretching over 850 kilometers? It's clear that the Wellington region has a lot to offer, but the core of the local economy remains the thriving wine industry. It's wonderful to see how the workers in the wine industry are able to share in these successes through a number of inclusive models. After the break, we visit a whisky distillery and meet with Burgess from Landbouweekblad to get his views. Welcome back to Nation in Conversation. Remember to join the discussion on Twitter and Facebook and have your say. There is another thriving business in the heart of Wellington, the James Sedgwick Distillery, a must-see if you visit the area. Let's take a look. visit to Wellington will not be complete without a visit to the James Sedgwick Distillery, the oldest whisky distillery in Africa, founded in 1886.
Good day and welcome to the James Sedgwick Distillery here in the country town of Wellington. We're situated about 80 kilometers from Cape Town, and today you'll find yourself at the only commercial whisky distillery on the Africa continent. And what gives us this title is that we have close to 150,000 barrels currently in maturation. So here we are responsible for the making of the 3 ships fleet, as well as for Bain's Cape Mountain whisky. And the first 3 ships was launched in the South African market in 1977, and then Bain's became part of the fleet in 2009.
Did you know? Approximately 60% of a whisky's taste is determined by the wooden cask. Up to 5% of the volume gets absorbed into the cask and is referred to as the angel's share.
So next time you find yourself in a social occasion, I would like to invite you to try one of our South African styles, and proudly South African styles of whiskies. They are made by South Africans and they are made for the South African consumers out there. So, Slanjava.
Wellington Wine and Whisky. With me is Chris Burgess, editor of Landbouweekblad, here to share some of his insight. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
First Rand Bank co-founder G.T. Ferreira once famously remarked that investing in the wine industry had more to do with the return on ego than it has to do with the return on investment. Is this an accurate observation?
Yes, I'm afraid it is quite accurate. Well, I mean, your return on investment is around about 2%. And of our more or less 3,200 wine farmers, about 1 in 3 are making a loss. And there are more vineyards being taken out than being planted. So it's not a particularly pretty picture. And it's quite interesting. I mean, if you look at a bottle of wine, if you take a 750 ml bottle of wine with a value of about 40 Rand, the retail gets 7 Rand 70, the state gets 6 Rand 60, and the farmer gets 46 cents. So the farmer is not getting his due share.
Why is this the case? Are we as South Africans not drinking enough wine?
No, we're not, and we should be making a far greater effort to drink South African wine. For every 7 liters of beer, we drink 1 liter of wine. So, I mean, there's big work to be done in South Africa to develop the local market, and specifically the black market. I mean, you can look at the huge success of the Van Loefferen wines and their 4 cousin label. And the success they've had breaking into the black market. And then, as far as our exports are concerned, I mean, we seem to be trapped in a sort of a $5 cheap and cherry bracket, which we don't seem to be able to snap out of. So there's a lot of work going into looking at high value markets in the US and in Asia. And in Asia specifically, there's a lot of potential to market South Africa as the oldest of the new wine producing areas. So, you know, there's a lot that can be done.
What are some of the more positive developments happening in the industry?
There's a big drive to look at premium wines. So winemakers like Ibn Sadi, who you know, they're international rock stars in the wine world. So if you look at South African wines, our top wine costs around 2,500 Rand. If you look at France, it's about 250,000 Rand. So there's a lot of work to be done there. I've mentioned the local market, the export markets. But basically, yeah, I mean, you know, everything starts at home. So I mean, a lot of effort needs to go into growing the local market.
What are some of the more popular wines, and where are they grown?
So our most popular red wine is a Cabernet Sauvignon, and then the white wine is Chenin Blanc. Our biggest wine producing area is Stellenbosch, followed by Paarl. Paarl is a little more profitable than Stellenbosch, and the most profitable is the Breedekloof. The issue with Stellenbosch is that those farmers are a lot more integrated into the value chain. So they've got restaurants and they've got tasting venues and they've got their own brands. So yeah, it depends what segment of the value chain you're looking at.
The wine industry has had a little bit of bad press recently. There was the strike at Robertson, and then that Danish documentary that alleged that farmer workers were being paid slave wages. Is this an accurate assessment?
You know, the thing is that the press plays a really unfortunate role in all of this. I mean, there is always an attempt to sensationalize these things. You know, the wine industry has got VITA, which stands for the Wine and Agricultural Ethical Trade Association. A lot of the wine farmers belong to that, so the wages are being monitored. The fact of the matter is that the wine industry isn't that profitable, so it can't pay top wages. And if you're looking at wine buyers, so if you look at the Swedish wine monopoly, System Borgelet, I mean, their gross profit margin is 25 times that of the wine farmer. So if these wine buyers that are complaining about wages actually pay farmers more for the wine, everyone would be able to make more. And it's not that wine farmers don't want to pay the wages. I mean, as far as the Robertson incident is concerned, it was quite interesting because there the workers were earning 3,800 rand, which is about 300 rand higher than the current the minimum wage has just been announced, and management was putting 4,400 rand on the table. And they wanted 8,000 rand. So, and that was in jobs that can be automated in an area that is about a 50% joblessness rate. So, I mean, a person needs to see these things in perspective. And as I said, the media has a tendency to sensationalize it, to take an isolated incident and try and sort of extrapolate it across a whole industry. And I mean that. It doesn't help the workers, doesn't help the farmers.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Thank you.
After the break, we join Theo Vorster in studio to take the discussion forward with Vinpro.
Welcome back to Nation in Conversation. Today we talk about the wine industry, the challenges and the opportunity in the industry. With me today in the studio is Rico Basson. He's the Executive Director of Vinpro, and with him Unathi Mantshongo, who looks after the social development training projects at Vinpro. Welcome. Rico, I want to start with you. The size of the wine industry. Let's just for a minute look at the wine industry. How big is it? What's the contribution to South Africa?
In size, it's about 95,000 hectares. It's spread across the Western Cape and the Northern Cape and other provinces. It employs about 300,000 people in the full value chain, 3,300 producers, and about 600 wineries. And I often say we sell 1 million bottles every day of the year.
So it's an industry that employs a lot of people, but from a financial stability or financial soundness, it is under pressure. What's the reason for that, and to what extent is it under pressure?
You're quite right. When we look at the average yield, average return, it's only 2%, who doesn't make sense for any investor. So what we find is that there's a top third that's profitable and it's got business models with brands. There's a third in the middle that's struggling, and a third at the bottom who are uprooting vineyards at the moment to plant things like citrus and pecker nuts. We often say on a bottle of wine, which sells for 34 Rand, you'll find that the taxation on that is about 6 Rand. The content of the wine is about 2 or 3 Rand, and the farmer gets only 60 cents, which gives you an idea.
So if I take that bottle of wine, 35 bucks, the farmer gets almost that wine that's at the top of the bottle. That's under the cork almost. That's all the farmer gets. How can that situation be changed?
Look, it's not unique in the world. I think in agriculture we often find that case. The only way to change it is for South Africa to get out of the commodity wine where we tend to play. We have accessed markets 21 years ago as newcomers at that stage, very romantic with the Mandela era, but we got stuck at some of the lower price points. And we cannot, on a sustainable basis, provide and deliver wine at those price points. So the way forward is to focus on key markets like the US, like Africa, like China, work hand in hand with our own government to look at trade agreements, look at the tariffs on some of those markets, and then as industry build brands.
Unathi, on that point, South Africa does not have a wine culture if you look at the broader population. Yes, there is a portion of the population that enjoys their wine, that has a wine culture. How can we broaden the attractiveness of South African wine to our own population?
I think wine culture is definitely not part of South Africans' day-to-day, but I think we need to be more relatable. We've got a story to tell, and I think if we spend some time inviting people over to the Western Cape, to the winelands, to take a short left, there's definitely a romance that we can share with them that I think that they would start to enjoy. It's the story behind wine, not necessarily just the product itself.
But that comes back to tourism. Tourism is an area that in the rest of the world, and I must say in South Africa, it's an attractiveness. Are we fully utilizing the potential in the tourism industry?
I think there's room to improve, massive room to improve. The wine industry is busy with a tourism plan, linking it to getting players to all work together. So I think there's lots of plans in place that are coming up, and I think it's something that we've admitted as ourselves, as the wine industry, that we can do better. People are interested in us as an industry. They're interested in the stories that we have to tell. We just have to tell them in a way that they can relate to bring them through to the Western Cape.
You talk about relate to the story, but Rico, relate also has to do with South African wine internationally is a quality at a specific price point. How do we change that price point in terms of not a value for money proposition, and that's a good market because we can do it there, but also create markets where we are more at the top end of the market. How do we go about that?
Theo, it's a difficult solution. The answer would is to become far more focused, in all likelihood balance the European focus of the moment with these other new markets. We are underpriced totally in terms of quality. When we look at our competitors, we are probably tenfold cheaper than the top Chilean, the top Australian wines. And what we see now is that new initiatives like the Swartland Revolution, the Breede Kloof Chenin Blanc project are breaking that ceiling. And with existing brands, we are making good progress now to readjust on a brand and a market basis. So far more focused, far more collaboration in terms of going to market and making sure the whole chain knows exactly the different roles and responsibilities.
The whole chain, does that also include the cooperative wine industry?
Absolutely. We would tend to include the co-ops with the wineries which we speak about. Yes, so obviously production coming from the nursery side via the winery through distribution, import agents and market. We often find that the retail margin in some of these international markets is 25 times more than the farm level price, and that balance isn't unique, but it's where you want collaboration to build sustainability.
If we talk about, let's assume that balance is now against the farmer. What can the farming community or the producers of grapes, how should they view that, and is there opportunities to lengthen or to increase that margin in the value chain?
Absolutely, and it isn't a case of purely adding, putting wine into a bottle. That we often say it's to get the wine on the shelf is the easy part, to get it off the shelf is the difficult part. Absolutely, I think we don't often enough speak about the efficiency levels and the use of technology and a productive labor force. If we look at the work we do on training, for example, at the moment, if we look at the usage of mechanization and balancing the two, then we've got some of the best farmers in the world. But that in itself isn't enough to bring the margin back, and there you'll need innovative business models that can work up and down that chain.
Unathi, developing new entrants, new farmers, broadening the base of the wine industry. What are you guys busy with?
We're busy with several different projects. The wine industry is very exciting, and we're basically trying to sell this. People come where there's opportunity to grow. We're currently busy with a learner management system where we are trying to capture all the training that's happening in the industry, trying to understand what are the trends and how can we strengthen that to get more people to come in and to make it more attractive and to showcase what's currently happening in the South African wine industry from a training and opportunities perspective. So we're looking at launching around April 2017, And it's going to be a platform where people can use it to see who is the best of the best. How are they training? What is the financial spend on training in order to advertise ourselves as a progressive industry?
Are we getting it right to establish, you talked about trademarks and people relating to trademarks. How are we doing in respect of creating new trademarks? Trademarks that might resonate better with a broader part of the population. Are we getting anything right in that space?
In terms of brands, black-owned brands, I think we've got about 37 black-owned wine brands. And the main thing is that people don't necessarily relate to whether the brand is black-owned or not. People look for quality. What we're doing as an industry is that we're supporting the existing brands to make it more attractive for different people with different ideas to come in and understand that it's a space that they can operate in and progress and succeed in. So that's what we're busy with at the moment.
Rico, Unathi, thank you very much for joining us. It is a challenging industry, but I think we need to support the industry. I think it's an industry that's going out of its way to create more opportunity and live up to expectations. So tonight, drink a toast to the South African wine industry. Until next week, goodbye.
Thank you, Theo. Join us next week as we visit the beautiful Ceres region and shed some light on the flourishing fruit industry. Until then, remember to exercise your right as consumer. Join the conversation as it affects us all. Goodbye. Nation in Conversation, taking you on a journey through the South African countryside. Proudly sponsored by Monsanto, Nedbank and Senves, in association with AFGRI, Hinterland and NWK.